is the greatest in the kingdom? Find out in today's Bible time.
Come and join us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bible time. This is me, and this is my dad.
Who's me?
I am Jacie.
This is Jacie. This is me. This is me's dad. All right. Okay, we are picking up in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, starting at verse 37. Jacie, what's the gospel? What's a gospel?
The gospel. It's something, for some reason it makes me think of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah, should. The gospel means good news.
Oh, yeah.
And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are called the Gospels because they're stories of the good news of Jesus. So when people say the Gospel of Luke, it's talking about the book of Luke, the good news of Jesus according to Luke. Okay? So that's what we're reading, all right?
Okay.
So a guy named Luke wrote this about Jesus' life. And this is what it says. Now this is what I want you to do, Jay, because Bible time is all about growing in a relationship with Jesus and us just spending time reading the Bible and hearing from him. So let's pretend like Jesus was here and we were hearing these stories. And anything that speaks to you, anything that's like, oh, you have a question about, or anything that's like, do you know what it means, speaks to you? Like,
oh, yeah, it doesn't literally speak to you, but it
kind of like it sticks out in your heart.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's interesting, or I should do something with that. Then I want you to just stop me, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so this is what it says. On the next day, when they had come down from the mountain, a great crowd met him. And behold, a man from the crowd cried out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child. And behold, a spirit seizes him, and he suddenly cries out. It convulses him so that he foams at the mouth and shatters him, and will hardly leave him. And I begged your disciples to cast it out, but they could not." Jesus answered, "O faithless and twisted generation, how long am I to be with you and bear with you? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon threw him on the ground and convulsed him. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy and gave him back to his father, and all were astonished at the majesty of God.
I saw a movie or something about this. And I remember this story.
Mm-hmm.
And he was scraping himself.
That was a different guy that had a demon.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a different guy. There's a bunch of different people that had demons that Jesus healed. So, what do you think about this one? This dad has a son, his only son, and he's begging that Jesus would heal the demon that throws his boy down. And then he did. He rebuked the unclean spirit. Do you know what the word rebuked means? And he healed the boy.
Rebuked means you I'm trying to think of the right word to explain it. It's you, I don't know.
Rebuke is when you speak at something and you say, "Stop that now."
Yeah, why did I not think of that?
Something like that. Okay, let's continue. Remember, let me know if anything sticks out to you, okay? Okay. But while they were all marveling at everything he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men." But they did not understand the saying, and it was concealed from them, so that they might not perceive it. And they were afraid to ask him about this saying. That's weird to me, that he says, "Let these words sink into your ears," really hear them. And then he says, what does he want them to hear? that the Son of Man was about to be delivered into the hands of men and killed. So he's speaking about his death. You remember this term, Son of Man?
Yes.
Who is that?
As Jesus. Oh wait, yeah. So it's Jesus born from a man, but Jesus is God's son.
Mm-hmm. Born of a woman, but...
Oh, what did I think of
But
that?
from man, like mankind, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this term comes from the Old Testament in the book of Daniel, but Jesus always likes to refer to himself as the Son of Man, or a lot of times he does. Anyway, I think it's interesting that he says, make sure these words sink into your ears, but then it says, it was concealed from them, so that they might not perceive it. Sometimes God speaks something to us, and he wants us to listen, but for a moment we may not understand what he meant, but later on we will. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like he wanted them to listen and understand what it meant, but for the time being, they weren't able to perceive or understand what exactly he was meaning by that. But later, they would look back and be like, oh, you were delivered into the hands of men and killed. That's what that meant.
What does perceive mean again?
Perceive means like understand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's a good one for us. Let's see what this says. An argument arose among them as to which of them was the greatest. What does that mean, greatest?
The best.
Yeah. So these dudes were arguing about who is the best. Do you ever do that with your friends?
Maybe a little tiny bit.
Yeah, most of us do. So, this is normal human behavior, even though it's not necessarily right, and it usually comes from a place of pride. You know what pride is?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like people trying to be better than each other, but they were doing what you and I do sometimes. But Jesus, knowing the reasoning of their hearts, took a child and put him by his side, and he said to them, whoever receives this child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you all is the one who is great. What do you think he meant by that?
Wait, I don't really understand why he said that it was great. He should have said that he was the greatest.
Well, I don't think that Jesus is actually interested in telling people who's the greatest. Because think about this. The difference between being great and being the greatest is that greatest has to do with comparison, right?
Oh.
You ever thought about this? Think about this. You can only be the greatest if you compare against something else. So like if A is greater than B. So there has to be something to compare against if you're the greatest. But Jesus says that you can be great and you don't have to compare against anything. You can just be great just because you're great. You don't have to say, to be great doesn't mean that somebody else isn't great. It doesn't mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if Jesus was like, hey, Jacie, you're great. You'd be like, oh, cool. And then he was like, hey, Ryan, you're great too. She'd be like, oh, cool. Hey, Avery, you're also great. And you'd be like, oh, cool. And all three of you could be just as great as each other. But you'd all be great, right? Mm. But if he uses the word the greatest, that means that either you, Ryan, or Avery is going to be the greatest, and two of you are not going to be the greatest.
But we're still going to be great.
You could still be great. But that's the point, is Jesus, what's happening here is that humans always try and have these arguments about who's the greatest because they want to compare against other people. We want to be better than somebody else. Sometimes it's not enough for us just to know that we're good at something. We want to be good at something to be better than other people. But that's not what Jesus wants for us. He thinks that we can be great even if we're not trying to be great compared to somebody else. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So what does that say to you, like, does that change the way that you get to treat your friends because of how Jesus sees it?
Yeah.
How?
We can stop comparing.
That's right. Like, you can want really good stuff for your friends, for people that aren't your friends, because your life is not compared against their life. So when Ryan and Avery and Aubrey get really good things, or they get a great gift, or they have a really fun time, or they're really good at something, whether it's a sport or music or math or whatever, you could be happy for them, because it's a good thing for us to want our friends and other people to be great, right? That's what love does. Love wants the best for other people. But when we compare against other people, that takes away from our love, because we're comparing against them, and in order for us to feel better about ourselves, that means that they have to be worse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I think we can take this passage and know that, first of all, Jesus says, "Come to me and receive me like a child." Like, you're just a kid, and you don't have all these adult worries in your mind and adult comparisons in your mind, but you can just love people like a kid.
But what about, like, people who don't know that?
Who don't know what?
Like, who don't know that we don't have to compare and that we're all great, what if...
Well, not everybody is great, but Jesus is saying everybody can be great, right? Look at this, what he said. "For he who is least among you is the one who is great." What does least among you mean? What do you think Jesus meant by that?
The one you don't, the one you least care about?
Could be, yeah. So it's like all these adults were arguing about who was the greatest, and then Jesus pulls in a little kid that didn't have any money, didn't have a job, he wasn't, important, but he pulls in a little kid, and he starts talking about the kid, and he's saying whoever is least or littlest or doesn't have all of this special stuff about you, that's the one who is great. I think it's, Jesus is always changing everybody's perspective, how they think, how they compare. He's always flipping this world upside down, saying, if you want to be great, you'll be a servant of other people. That's why we say we're servants, huh?
I wish Jesus could come back to Earth.
I think he will sometime.
I wish it could be during
Maybe
my
soon.
life.
Well, it just might be during your life. You never know. Things are getting crazy out there. Okay, let's read just a little bit more. It says, "John answered, 'Master, we saw someone casting out a demon in your name, and we tried to stop him because he does not follow with us.' But Jesus said to him, 'Do not stop him, for the one who is not against you is for you.'" So, again, comparing, they were trying to stop somebody who was doing a good thing, casting out a demon, right? That demons are bad. They were casting a demon out and healing somebody. And they tried to stop him because that person was not following Jesus with them. And Jesus said, "Don't stop him, for the one who's not against you is for you." So he was saying, that person is obviously on our team. Like, maybe that person is great too. You got any big takeaways today? Something that really speaks to you? Think about what we just read. What's the thing is there anything that you can apply to your life today?
Well, I keep thinking about the who is greatest.
Me too. That's the one that's speaking to me the most.
Me too.
The difference between greatest and being great, and Jesus reminding me today that I don't need to compare against other people, try and figure out who's the greatest. I can just desire other people to be great, and I can try and be great myself through loving God like a child, huh?
But what about, like, when I go to Ryan's house and then Parker's like, "It's not fair, you always get to go to Ryan's house."
What about it?
Like, he what if he doesn't know that you can't just...
Compare?
Yeah.
Then maybe in love, you gently say, hey, buddy, we don't need to compare against each other.
He never believes me. He always believes you. Whenever I tell him... So he asks me a question. I tell him the answer. He goes to mom and dad and asks it again. And he gets the same answer, but he just never listens to me.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. And you know what? I bet that people watching these videos, that probably happens to them too. Truth is, we all go through things in life, and we all have people that don't listen to us sometimes. And learning how to deal with that is hard. But that's kind of one of the things that Jesus wants for us. Is what Jesus wants for you is for your heart to learn how to deal with it when people are tough. And what you can control is your words and your opinion and your thoughts. You can't control him. Now it's mom and my job to help him grow in his development, to help him how he thinks. But what you need to do between you and God is you need to focus on how do you respond, even if he doesn't believe you or doesn't listen to you or whatever.
Is there a passage on how to be creative?
There is, and we'll probably read it another day, because that's all we have for today.
It would be great for Parker.
So maybe we could say see you later and see you tomorrow to these guys.
Bye.
What do you think that I should ask them to do with my YouTube videos?
Hit the subscribe button and smash the like button.
And smash the like button. What about ringing the
bell?
Ring the bell. Smash the like button.
And the most important one is subscribe.
Subscribe. Well, what about leave a comment?
Subscribe is better.
Okay. Can they leave a comment too?
Yeah.
Okay. Leave a comment. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.